afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are lucky enough to be attending the February 2015 PracticeMaster Virtual User Group meeting, where we will be talking today about the calendar properties settings screen and the task list, and tasks in general. I'm going to talk about tasks because they are near and dear to my heart. Mary Jo is going to talk about calendar properties, not because they're near and dear to her heart, but because she understands them just a little bit more than I do. Before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. This is the GoToWebinar control panel right here. I've just noticed that mine looks a little different. I think they've changed the interface since we took this picture. I have to make a note and update mine a little. If you are looking at this right now, if you're able to see this on your screen other than what I'm pointing to as a sample, then it's because you have not clicked this button here that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because had you clicked that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, you would have witnessed this sliding off the right-hand side of your screen, and this would now be an arrow that looks like it's pointing more to the left, because once you slide it off your screen, this becomes an arrow pointing to the left, which clicking will bring it back. Why would you want to bring it back? Well, because you have a question and you want to type it here and remember to hit the send button, because if you do those two things, Leanne, our humble and experienced moderator, will recognize that you have a question, and she will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at exactly the right moment and ask your question on your behalf. Now, keep in mind that Mary Jo, not so much, but me, I tend to ramble, and sometimes I get off track. So if either I or Mary Jo are rambling or getting off track, or if you just have a follow-up question, keep typing your questions here, keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will keep finding that opportune moment to interrupt myself or Mary Jo to ask your question on your behalf. Now, if you're feeling a little bit less humble and a little bit more bold, you can press this button here. On my example, looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards, but I think it's a little different now. I just noticed when I was kind of poking around the new GoToWebinar interface. In any event, there will be a button here that looks like it means raise your hand. And if you click that, it will do just that. It will raise your hand. Leanne will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune moment, but this time, instead of asking your question on your behalf, she will unmute your microphone and she'll let you ask your own question. Now, you will remain unmuted until we're done, so that if we do get off track or if you do have additional follow-up questions, it will be a two-way street as far as communicating with us, and you will be able to continue to have that conversation with us till we're done with your question. So this will be a no Frito, no Dorito zone, but as soon as you're done, Leanne will mute your microphone back up, and if you're still eating a late lunch, you can go back to eating the Frito and Dorito part of that lunch. Now, with that said, I'm going to remember this time that I'm supposed to mention twice, and one will be right now and one will be at the end, that version 15.1 and 15.2 are being sunsetted in June. So if you have version 15.1 or version 15.2 of Tabs, PracticeMaster, whatever, you need to think about getting upgraded to the latest version. Chances are you have the right to do that and just haven't installed them, or maybe you've let maintenance lapse and you need to renew the maintenance and then get up to version 17.1, because come June, support for version 15.1 and 15.2 will go away, and you may run into some problems trying to get your questions answered. So without any further ado, I'm going to press this magic button and that magic button, and I'm going to tell it not to save, and I'm going to go over here. Gosh, I'm just way out of tune, aren't I, Mary Jo? I don't even have PracticeMaster loaded. And I'm going to introduce Mary Jo while I load PracticeMaster. Here you go, Mary Jo.
Okay. You have a lot of magic buttons, Paul.
I do.
It's like Jack and the Magic Beans. I don't know where we're headed with that, but anyway. So let's talk about calendar properties. We sometimes want to change the look of what our calendar view is, or set some parameters there. And these are personal preferences. Just because Susie down the hall has hers set one way doesn't mean you have to have yours set that way. You might like to see your calendar on a daily view, while somebody else might want to see it on a weekly view, while somebody else wants to see it on a monthly view. and any combination therein. So the calendar properties is a place that we can set some of those examples. So let's go underneath the calendar tab, and this little palette here, as it looks like there, a little paint palette, is our calendar properties. This is where we can set up some of those things. So the first screen that we have talks about the general calendar properties. These can apply across the board no matter what view you're looking at. So the first thing that we can do is we can display certain fields in the calendar. You might be looking at it and you might just be seeing a description and maybe a start time, or maybe you're just seeing your initials and a description of the calendar entry. But there's a lot that you can change here. We can select fields, and any field that is available over here can be put over to be displayed, and you can rearrange these in any order that you want. So in our example here, we have the user initials, so whoever's calendar it is, the description, and a start time. Now, keep in mind, you can put over all of these fields if you want, but you only have a little box that you're showing information in, so you might not want to do that. It's going to take up all of that space just for one calendar entry, and if you've got several entries, that could get kind of cumbersome. So we want to keep this short and sweet. What do we want to see? Most of the time, I want to see who the client is, so I add the client ID. Sometimes I just, instead of a user initials, I want to see the group info. I want to see every initial that's in that calendar entry. If it's me and John Smith and Jim Jones, I want to see all three of our initials that this is our calendar entry. I don't want to just see, just mine, or just, 3 different entries with, each one of those. So I like to see the group info. And then I also like to see the client description and the client name, because the client name, sometimes I don't even put the ID because the number might not mean anything to me, but the name does. I want to see that client name and sometimes that client description, because that can also be, what is their matter description. That's usually what we type in that work description. So there's a lot of options here. So keep that in mind, that that can all be changed. If you're not liking what you're seeing in that box, this is where you can pick and choose fields and rearrange them to your liking. The next thing, I'm not going to save any of that. We'll just leave it as is. And then you can also show AM and PM for time fields. Do you want to know if it's 8 a.m. or, 8 p.m.? And the reason that this would be important is if you're looking at a monthly view or a weekly view. Obviously, on the daily view, you're going to be able to see that you're in the morning or you're in the afternoon. But on a weekly or a monthly view, this might be handy to know that it's AM or PM. You can change your holiday venue. Most of our firms have just the standard holidays. In this instance, we have another example here that we've set up for Jewish holidays. You might have some other holidays in here, like a set that you have created, and you can change which view you're looking at. Do I want to just see the standard? Do I want to see the Jewish? Some have a combination and has both, but most of the time the default is just the standard holidays. In this section here with the event colors, we can choose to see event colors based on user ID information, and in system configuration, every user has a place that you can give them a color for their calendar. It can be blue, green, yellow, and then any shade in between of any of those. You get a whole rainbow of colors, so everybody can have their own pretty little color, and you can choose to view the calendar by that user ID information. So whatever has been defined in their system configuration ID, that's what you'll see it as. So all of my entries might be purple, Paul's might be red, Leanne's might be green, and if I'm looking at the calendar, I would know right away by that color who I'm looking at. The other option that I have here is to do event colors are based on the calendar code information. Every calendar code can also have a color attached to it. So if I have all of hearings as red and all of my client meetings as green, I'd be able to right away tell based on this event color what I have scheduled. Now, based on how you're using the calendar would determine maybe how you're looking at this. If you're the receptionist and you have to schedule everybody's appointments, you might want to be viewing your calendar in the user ID view. Or if you're a legal assistant and you have 3 attorneys you're working for, you might want to be seeing it in this user ID information so that you can see all 3 of those attorneys in their different colors. Whereas if you are an attorney and you're only ever looking at your own calendar, you might want to see your events based on that calendar code information so you know whether it's a meeting or whether it's a hearing or whatever that may be. And then you also can just use the default colors for all the events. You can set a default event color here, and then you can just use that as well. The options section here has the number of minutes to wait between refreshes. Most of the time I set this at 5 minutes, and that's going to be how often that calendar is going to refresh. I think the default is 30 minutes, but you can lower that if you'd like. You can disable the drag and drop. I don't know why you would, because I think it's an awesome feature. You know, you can grab an event and just drag and drop it into another section of your calendar. But if you don't want that ability, you can disable it. You can also display incomplete tasks in the all-day area. Now, we do have that section at the bottom of the calendar view where you can see all of your tasks, but some people like to see those incomplete ones in the all-day area at the top. And you also can display reminders up there as well. So if you've set a reminder for 2 weeks before, it can show up in that all-day area, and you can display it there. You can bold dates in the date selector that contains activity, and you also can combine multiple user records into one group record. So if you've got a calendar record that's assigned to 3 different people, you can check this box. It'll combine it into one calendar entry, and that's where that group ID info up here is helpful, because then you would see all 3 of those initials in one calendar entry instead of 3 separate ones. The Daily tab is where you're going to start looking at some of your other options here. Paul, do I have keyboard and mouse? I'm not working anymore. Well, while that's still here, oops, the separate fields with a hyphen, that's also something that you can change. So if you want to separate them with a comma, a space, a semicolon, or a pipe symbol, you can do that. So that's those selected fields that we did there. I forgot. You can also select how you want them to be separated. Okay, I'm back. So daily, we can set our work hours for the day, so this can shorten up what that daily view looks like. If you come in at 6 o'clock and you leave at 3, you can change these times here to fit what your schedule is. And you also can set the interval. You can go anywhere from 5 minutes to 60 minutes. So if this is between appointments. So on that daily view, each line item will have that amount of space then that you can go ahead and type in. Remember, the smaller the number here, the smaller the space between each one. So if you want a large area that you can schedule an appointment, and you schedule mainly 30-minute appointments, you might want to have that be your default here. And that's where you can change that. You also can change your font size. I don't know about you guys, but I just got new glasses again because I'm getting older. And these reading glasses and the distance glasses are getting hard to see some of this computer font. So if this 8-point font is too small for you, you can up that font right here for your calendar. You also can do that here for the calendar overall. This, I think, is just for your time font. This is going to be for the actual writing. You can display the screen tips for partially hidden events, and you can limit the number of all the visible all-day activities to a certain amount here. You know, you get too many things in that all-day area, and it's going to fill up very quickly, so you might want to limit that up there. And you can limit that to anywhere from none. You know, you can just have unlimited, or go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your weekly tab, again, you can change your font size, and you can display the screen tips for partially hidden events, and then also you can include weekends. Some people don't want those weekends to be on that calendar, so you can take that off, or you can include that. And you can compress those weekend days, which will make those smaller on the end. The monthly view, not as many tips here, many selections here, I should say. You should have the font size here that you can change, or you can, again, display those screen tips. And lastly, we have our task list. We can use column layout. Now, we do have a default column layout for the task list. It is right here, the task list format. This is usually what you'll see here. And we've talked a little bit about changing the column layouts when we talked about task lists in the past, but this is where you would have your new, if you've created your own column layout, I could have one that says Mary Jo's task list, and I could choose that for me to see my task list in a different way. I don't want to modify this default because that's what everybody else is seeing, but I could create my own. And this is where I could choose that. Or if there are certain ones that have already been created for your firm, you could choose a different viewing of how you want that layout to be for your tasks. The sorting can be used to, sort that list a little bit differently. And again, the default is just going to be for your tasks only because you're on the task list. But that also can have different index set up. And then your selection criteria. And this you might change based on what you're trying to see. If you need to see all the incomplete tasks all the time, you can just leave it set at that. But sometimes you might want to see just the incomplete tasks for today. Or you want to see just your overdue tasks. Or sometimes you just want to come back in here and you want to change this to be all the completed tasks and see what you've got. So this is where you can flip between these different selections here. And then lastly, you've got the include tasks with no due date, and you can show those as well. And it's even telling you that might slow down things because you're going to be seeing a lot more entries possibly. So just a couple of things to keep in mind there. So these are ways that you can come in and just further enhance how you're looking at your view for your calendar or your task list. Paul?
Thank you very much, Mary Jo. And as she said at the end there, that is just for you. So you might have one set of preferences as to how you see things that are totally different than the person in the office next to you, and that's fine because that's what you're setting as your calendar properties. And so since we're talking about calendars, I'm going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to talk about tasks. Now, people that know me know that I am very task-oriented. I have a task for everything. I'm infrastructure-oriented. If I'm going to do something, you can rest assured it's on a list. In fact, I'm going to go down my list of things for our virtual user group meetings today, and I'm going to cross off calendar properties because Mary Jo just did that. I have a list of the subjects and the exact order of the 3 virtual user group meetings that we're doing today in front of me. I am that way. I like to make lists, and so tasks are very appropriate to me. Now, who can tell me, are we looking at tasks right now? Well, I'll tell you the answer is no, we're not. These are events. What's the difference between a task and event? Well, that's probably the first thing to define because a lot of people don't really understand what the difference is. And I can say that in a word, it is duration. Tasks do not have a duration. They have usually a day that you want to have them done by, a deadline, if you will, and sometimes there's a time. You may say, I'd really like to have this done by 9 o'clock, or perhaps I want to be reminded to do this at 9 o'clock, but there is never an end time. If I go here and click there to add a new calendar item, it'll default to being an event from 11 to 11:15 because that's where I clicked on my calendar. But if I change this to task, then once I get off that, end time goes away. Because a task can have a time, although most tasks don't even have a time. They just have a date. I need to make sure that on Tuesday I call this person, and on Wednesday I need to make sure I have the answers to the interrogatories filed for the Jones matter. And on Wednesday by 4 o'clock, if I haven't finished it, I need to be reminded that I need to file a certain piece of paper with the court. These are all tasks, and the only difference, the main difference, is the end time. Now, I promised in the description of what we were going to talk about here that I would tell you my ways of dealing with tasks. So from the mouth of the world's most anal retentive person come the top 10 ways to deal with tasks. Okay, don't count because I just made that up. First off, I can see my tasks at the bottom of my calendar screen by simply dragging up this divider here and making it show as much as I want. Now, while I'm here, if I right-click in this screen and go to Properties, I can change it to either all incomplete tasks for selected day, overdue tasks, or all completed. Now, I never look at all completed unless I accidentally check one off and need to go find it. I am usually looking at overdue tasks. Now, the one time, and I don't have any that are overdue, I have tasks that I haven't done, but they aren't overdue. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to change this. And I'm going to say all incomplete again, and that item's going to pop back in. Now, I don't like looking at my tasks this way. To me, a calendar is for events. Sure, tasks are tied to days. All my tasks have a date that I want to do them on. But I think that a calendar is a view that is specific to events. So for me, I actually open up a separate window called the task list. And so here are the tasks that are in the system. Now, I am now looking at all users as opposed to being back in the calendar where I was looking at just 3 of them, I believe. So I'm seeing a total of 5 tasks. Now, first off, I think tasks are meant to be sorted by due date, and so the items that are overdue should appear at the top. Second off, I am a firm believer that you shouldn't be looking at all your incomplete tasks. You should be looking at your overdue tasks. Now that means when I'm done, since the system, my demo system thinks today is 11/17/14, when I click OK, these two tasks are going to be, they're going to disappear because they are not overdue. Now keep in mind, today is considered by the system to be overdue. So watch this. I think that is a very effective way to look at your task list. Now I will be the first to admit that my task list typically has more things on it than that. So I'm going to actually go take you to it. Oh, didn't mean to press that. I'm going to take you to my task list. And since it's Learn Day, these tasks mainly have to do with Learn Day, which is where me, Mary Jo, and Leanne get together and perform these 3 virtual user group meetings and plan the next ones and do all of our video filming. Now, if I were to look at all my tasks, all my incomplete, what I'd be looking at, for me, since I schedule things on a recurring basis, would look like this. And if you come into your task list and you have pages and pages and pages of items in your task list, that's not a good way psychologically to look at it. So my advice to you is that if you're looking at tasks, that you look at them in this separate task window and that you only look at overdue, not all incomplete, because all incomplete will contain a whole bunch of stuff that you don't care about. Now, a couple things to look at here. We talked today about the normal template at a certain client's office, and so this has been done. Tasks also differ from events in that they have a date completed. Now, if I go back to my task list and I click this box here, it's not going to tell me what it's going to do because I've told it not to give me that warning anymore. It is just going to mark it complete and it disappears. Now, remember I told you, I said, the only time I look at the overdue tasks is when I accidentally mark something complete and I need to go look at it. So if I now go to Properties and tell it I want to see all completed tasks, it's going to take it a few seconds, but it's ultimately going to give me a list of all my tasks that were marked complete, and I can sort that list in such a way that I can go through and find the one that I just marked complete by mistake. It would obviously be down toward the bottom. I can basically drag this all the way down to the bottom, find it, and, well, okay, that's not working for me because of my iPad here. Oh, come on. Mary Jo's going to do that because I don't ever go down. And now it has something to do with how many there are, Mary Jo. There we go. Well, trust us, we can do that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the view. Oh, you got it? Okay. So there we go. There's the normal template at LW. I'm going to leave that marked complete. I just wanted to show you that when you mark something complete and it vanishes from your list because you're not showing completed items, don't panic. It's not gone. It's just been marked complete. And if you were actually to go into the task record when you found it, you'd find that the date complete has a date in it, meaning it's complete. How do you unmark it complete? You either uncheck it from that list we were just on, or you change this date back to nothing. Here's a couple tips for you on dates. If I'm in a date field and I press D for today, it will put today's date in. If I press C as in clear, it'll change it back to MMDDYYYY. Try to say that fast. So that is the difference between a task and an event. There's the duration, or the lack of an end time, identifies something as being a task. And the fact that you can specify date completed also identifies something as being a task. Now, one of my biggest tips that I could give to anybody about how to manage tasks is what I like to call realistic rescheduling. If it's Monday morning and you've got 37 things on your task list for Monday, I like to go through right away, first thing in the morning, and identify the things that I, A, can do right now, and then I check them off. There are a couple things that I do every Monday morning. I check my notes on my phone. There are a couple things that I can just do immediately and get them off my list. B, I like to take the things that I know without a doubt that I am not going to do on that day and realistically reschedule them. I don't want to look at them all day and say, gosh, I should be doing that, but I know I'm not going to have time. I need to immediately get it onto the day that I think I'm going to be doing it. If I hope to get to it on Tuesday, fine, put it on Tuesday. If I know there's no way at all that I'm going to get to it until Wednesday or Thursday, then realistically reschedule it for that day. Because part of the key to proper task management is that satisfaction you get from, at the end of the day, having a totally empty task list. Now, the other side of the coin is that when you do something, you check it off, and at the end of the day, you look at your list, and the things that you did that you forgot to check off, you check off, and the things that are left, you move. Because at the end of the day, no matter how you do it, you need to be looking at an empty task list. If you are one of those people who always has a whole bunch of red items because I was at a law firm the other day, and when the legal assistant brought up somebody's task list, and there was an item from 2 years ago that was red. I said, well, you can check that off. And she said, no, that still hasn't been done. Okay, if you've been looking at that for 2 years, that's what, 720 some days, 730 days, whatever. Things tend to get ignored when you look at them and just keep ignoring and ignoring and ignoring them. Even if they need to still be done, you need to realistically reschedule them. One last thing, I'm going to show you my secret weapon. I'm going to go into the calendar view where I have organized some quick views. Now, we did a session on quick views in the virtual user group meetings last month, the month before, I can't quite remember. I did a webinar on quick views, I believe this month or last month. So there's a lot of video content out there. In a minute, I'm going to show you how to get to that video content. I have a quick view that allows me to look at today's tasks versus overdue tasks, which I have none of, versus my incomplete tasks, which is going to be a big list, but it's how I go to see, what I'm doing next Saturday or what I'm doing next Tuesday. And my marked complete today. This is my favorite. So if I accidentally mark something complete, I can just go to this view, and there it is. I don't have to go look for it on that big, huge list of tasks that have been completed from the beginning of time. I just look at everything I marked complete today, and I say, oh, there's the one I accidentally marked complete today, and I change it. Now, here's the real kicker. If I look at my today tasks, and I decide that this item, and this item, and this item, and I'm doing a control-click to mark different items that aren't next to each other, are things that I'm not going to do till next Tuesday. I've written workflows, or should I say Leanne wrote workflows for one of our clients that I've adopted, and we've put in several other clients, that allow you to reschedule items en masse for next Tuesday, next Friday, 2 weeks from Tuesday, things like that. So I can take these things and move them around very quickly and get a realistic view of what I'm going to do today. And I think that's the key. I'm getting a little off, well, not off topic, but a little off the normal how do you operate a task into a little bit of theory. But I think the tasks are nothing if they're not effective. And I think the way to make them effective is to have tools that allow you to realistically manage them and get them on the right day and get a workable list of tasks for today so that you can get that feeling of accomplishment at the end of the day when you've either rescheduled things you can't do or you've completed things that you can. And so enough about that. I'm going to look at this list over here, and I'm going to cross off task list because it's another thing on my list that I can check off. And now I'm going to say that next month we're going to talk about file list navigation, how to get around in lists of matters, lists of fees, lists of anything that you see in PracticeMaster. I'll talk about that. And Mary Jo is going to talk about history tracking, using the inherent ability in PracticeMaster to track the history of every value that a certain field has ever had so that you can stop worrying about who might change something to the wrong thing because now you can see what they changed it from. I'm going to remind you again that version 15.1 and 15.2 are going to be sunsetted in June. So if you have version 15.1, 15.2, and you can tell that by clicking in any of the programs on Help, About, and it's going to be right up there. We're on version 17.1, so we're not worried. But version 15.1 and 2 will be sunsetted in June. And I'm also going to remind you that if you go to our website, which is www.untitled attorneycomputersystems.com, of course with the emphasis on the S before the .com, that you can see all the video content that we have. And so if you click up here on videos, you will see all 3 virtual user group meetings, plus our Coffee Pot webinars, which is my monthly series on new things or features or side products that you can use to achieve something. Our eBytes video series, which is Mary Jo's series of quick snippets of information on very specific topics. And the Paul and Mary Jo show, our talk show, TV show format video where Mary Jo or I will take a very broad topic and kind of dissect it. And if you click on one of the virtual user group meetings, you will be able to tell what the next meeting is about. Here we have March, where we're going to talk about the things I just announced we would talk about. And then as you scroll down, you'll see the recorded versions of the videos that we have recorded. Now, this one is the one you're attending right now, so it's currently in post-production. It's not even there yet. That won't happen until we are post-VUG. But in a minute, this will be in post-production, and in a couple days, this will show up on the website as a video you can watch. And then, of course, we have videos for every month going back all the way to the beginning of time as to when we started filming these, which was years and years and years ago. So be sure to take advantage of all this video content. And, of course, remember that you can search. I'm going to search for email statements, and it's going to, not if I spell it wrong. AI, there we go, email statement. And if I hit enter there and search for that, it will take me to a list of all the videos that have to do with statements and emailing, and a good, quick way to get to whatever topic it is that you may be looking for and see all the content that has to do with that. So that's it for today. Everybody have a good rest of the afternoon, a good month, and we will see you in March. Bye-bye.